Hello. This video is going to focus on the news post type in WordPress. So what we have here is, again, just to kind of show you, I'm sat in the news post type at the moment. We can obviously add new news articles to the intranet whenever we need to. I can see at the minute there's been a couple that have been created from you guys as well, which is great. So essentially, if I just go into the front end of the intranet and go into the news post type, you'll see that the way that it works is kind of a filter category. So you can see that there's a bit of text here to say this page contains a collection of news posts from across the trust. Posts are shown newest at the top to oldest at the bottom and can be filtered by category, department, or publish date. So if I click into filter news, we get this filter category here. So we can filter by cybersecurity, IT, just news in general, uncategorized. We then also have departments. So again, we've got the likes of health, education, IT again. And you can also decide to publish, to filter via date as well. So it could be that you want to only look at news articles that were created in 2023 rather than, see the full list of all of them. You would then click filter results, which would take you through and apply your filters. Alternatively, you can reset the filters if you're not quite satisfied with what you've put in the sections here. So going into the news post type, what you can do is if you go into add news, as I've mentioned in previous videos, the editing experience itself is very, very similar to the other ones. So you would add your title, you would then add your content, again, whether or not you're copying and pasting it from a template or a Word document, or you're starting from scratch, you can do so just by starting to add your content in here. You can add all the same blocks it's available on pages and other post types. Again, just looking at the toggle block inserter, we have, your standard paragraphs, headings, lists, etc. You can add videos, images, you can add different visual elements like warnings and things like that if you want to for your news items. You can add links to buttons as well. So anything that you want to, direct people to different areas, you can do so just by adding those as blocks in here. Now, just looking at the settings mostly for news. So if we come over here, something I do like to kind of mention when it comes to news items is that sometimes what you might find is when you come to create a news article, it might be that it's not quite yet ready to publish. It might be that you found that you've got 10 minutes spare in your day. You know that there's a news item that needs to go onto the intranet in 2 weeks' time, but you found the time now to be able to actually add it to WordPress. So let's say, for argument's sake, you've created your news article, you're happy with it, it's been reviewed if it needs reviewing, and you're just happy with the way that the content looks. What you can then do is in your settings, where we've got the publish settings here, if we were to add our content, the button up at the top here that says publish, we can just click that and it'll publish straight away. Alternatively, what we can do is we can change this. So rather than it being published immediately, we can decide that it doesn't need to go live until Wednesday, the 19th of June. And that's going to be at, we can say that we want this to be 9 a.m. So I'm going to put the different time in here, and I'm just going to click the AM button and then remove that. So now it says the publish date is the 19th of June at 9 a.m. Once we've, like I've mentioned, added all of our content, this now has changed to schedule up at the top here. So rather than it saying publish, it now says schedule. Similarly, if you are bringing over news items that were on the existing intranet, you can change the publish date to a date in the past if needs be. So it'll publish immediately, but it'll say that the date was 19th of June 2023 instead. So I'm just going to put that back to now. So again, if you do need to change that date, you would just click the now button up at the top. You can decide to stick the news item to the top of the blog. So if you were going to do this, this is usually in instances where there's some news that people do need to be aware of, rather than, again, if there's quite a few of you adding news items to the intranet, it's quite quick that things get lost, because as mentioned when I was reading out the news part before, the newest item will go to the top, and then obviously the older they are, the further down the page they go. So if there's something that you guys are trying to promote, for example, or there's a specific news item that people need to be aware of, you can stick it to the top of the blog, meaning that it's going to continuously be at the very, very top, rather than you lose it over time as more and more news items are added. Just being mindful that if you do stick something to the top of the blog, it's worth remembering what that is, so that when there's something else that might come up and you need to stick that to the top, that you come in and you remove this one. The difference then in here is that within your news, you do have your categories. So as I've mentioned previous, you've got the filter categories when you come into the news archive. So you can decide that this particular news item is for cybersecurity and the department is IT security. So it's just a case of ticking the box. Should you have done that by accident, you just click back into it and it removes it. Now, should you need to add a new category, you can click add new category under here. You type your category in here and then click add new category. That would then add to the list here, and that then is going to be available for newer news items. Should you then want to apply that to existing news items, you can do that as well. So every time you add a new category in here, it's just going to add itself to the full list of categories. Same with departments, it works in exactly the same way. So we can add a new department, that's then going to be available for new and existing news items. You can set featured images. So again, very similar to other post types, we can set a featured image in here. If I click into featured image, it brings up the media library. So these are all images that are being added by you guys of recent. You can also upload files by clicking into that tab. Select files is going to bring up your desktop where you can then add the image that you want to add into there. You can again just add an excerpt to your news item if you want to. So thinking about the type of information in the news article, you can add that excerpt that will just be very prominent at the top of the page, right under the title, and then people can read a little bit more information about what's in the news item rather than having to read through it to find out the info. Once you're happy with it, again, as I've mentioned, you can then straight publish that, or you can schedule it to publish at a later date. Just thinking about the sort of settings for the news item, when I've clicked into the news post type here on the left hand side, you can see that we then get like an extra drop down where we can see the categories and departments. So thinking about more of a like a management perspective, if you're coming in to manage the likes of your categories, your departments, if it's got a little bit where people have added new categories for new things just because it seems the right thing to do, which sometimes it is. If I leave this page and go into the categories, what I can see now is a list of the different categories available. It might be that for whatever reason you decide that uncategorized isn't necessary because we decide that it's not something that needs to be there. Probably not the best example. Let's take patient safety as an example. If that's no longer a category that you want to apply to your news items, if you hover over it, you can delete it. So then they don't have to be there. You can optimize these to suit your needs. You can delete these categories if you want. You can also just change them. So rather than deleting them and adding new ones, you can change this from IT to, again, IT security. If that made sense for you to do that, you would then just click update category and that would update. The other thing that you can do is you can add new categories in here as well. So it doesn't necessarily need to be that every time you add a new news item, that's where you add a new category. You can come in here and do that in here. So we can add our new category by popping the name in there. We can then add new category by clicking that button. It's then just going to add itself to our list of categories. The same works exactly the same for departments. So you can see again here, we can hover over these, we can delete them if we need to, we can edit them, and we can add brand new ones. Just going back into the news post type itself, what you'll see is that you can see the title of the news item, you can see the author, you can see the category and the department. What you'll notice is that is slightly different to news because we don't have categories for pages, sorry. We don't get to see categories and departments, but that is another reason why it determines what post type you're in, because you can see the categories, you can see the department. So if for whatever reason you needed to only see health news items, you can click that and it's going to give you a list of the ones that are tagged as health. Same with IT. So categories, if I clicked IT, we can now just see the IT categories available. Quite a lot of information to cram in there, so I hope that does make sense. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully it's quite straightforward for you to add news articles. And like I say, when you go into the news post type then and you refresh, your newest item would show up at the top. Unless you've decided to add something to the very top of the blog, then that's going to be the first one that we see. That's everything. So thank you very much.